Hey guys, Stephanie Chic here, dropping in, almost live, kind of live. We're gonna do these drop-in segments weekly, guys, on my YouTube channel. I am gonna dive into a really fun, juicy topic today that I picked for you guys because I know a lot of us struggle with this topic. I know it's a hot topic, and I really wanted to get your guys' take on it. So we are going to talk today about people pleasing. I'm sitting outside. It is a muggy July weather day, a little bit windy, not so stormy as it looks. And we're going to talk about people pleasing today, guys. So I just want to know if you guys are affected by the pressures of people pleasing. I know I was for the longest time. I recently broke that toxic, disabling behavior, and I wanted to share with you guys my take on it, but also I want to give you guys some insight on how you could break the habit as well, because you can. It is totally doable. So first, drop me a comment, guys. Reach out to me on Instagram or leave me a comment right below. Like this video, whatever you want. Let me know if this resonates with you. Is this a topic that kind of hits home for you guys? Are you a people pleaser? A lot of us are. Are you feeling compelled to people please? And if so, who is compelling you to feel like you need to people please and release your power, guys? So really, really a juicy one this week. So yeah, so here we go. I'm just gonna dive right in here. Just wanted to pull something up. Okay, guys. So basically how I got here into people pleasing. People pleasing wasn't necessarily my full issue, but my full issue was more tied to not being able to say no, with a fear of basically a huge, disabling, crippling fear of being rejected, and also just feeling this need for acceptance, guys, right? So I just really, really felt like I wanted people to like me. And what that ended up leading to was this life of just saying yes, yes, yes to everyone, basically letting a ton of people in my immediate circle and not having what we're going to dive into a little bit later, which is boundaries, guys. Not having boundaries with anyone. And what that led to is just exhaustion, because you can't maintain all those relationships and you can't be a yes man or a yes woman to everyone around you and not stay and not get down and authentic with yourself at some point. So I felt drained. I felt exhausted. I had to pick myself up. I had to cut people off. I had to learn boundaries. And that, guys, is the root of how we break the cycle of people pleasing. So what is people pleasing, guys? What does it mean for you? I want you guys to think about that right now. And to help you guys think about that, I've got some questions that I wrote down here, which basically are some key questions that are going to help you get some insight into why, your why when it comes to people pleasing. What am I afraid of if I stand in my, if I don't stand, in my power? Who am I afraid of being rejected by? Who am I afraid won't like me? What needs to happen so that I can find the courage to speak my truth, to be fully authentic, and speaking my truth, as cliche as it's becoming now, it's really tied to being able to be comfortable saying exactly how you feel when you feel it. And that was kind of an issue for me. I was just always kind of like, yeah, I just kind of like went where the wind blew, you know? And then where do you end up when the wind blows? If you just go with it, you end up lost, guys. That's where you end up. You don't end up where you want to be. You're not listening to your intuition. You're not listening to anything. You're like literally going where the wind blows. And today the wind is blowing north. Tomorrow it's blowing south. Sometimes it's blowing northeast. It's just not helping us. So how are we giving up our personal power? Really, what am I afraid of? What am I afraid of if I stand in my power, if I say how I feel? These are kind of questions that you can journal around and that you can ask yourself to get yourself to understand a little bit why you're people pleasing and why you feel a need to people please. And that's also going to help you tap into your self-worth. Now, guess why we people please, guys? Guess what it's tied to? It's tied into something that I talk about with all of my clients, every single one. Early childhood programming. So, who taught you to people please? Your caregivers, also known as our parents for most of the time. I spent my whole time wanting to seek everyone's approval because my birth father is estranged. what ends up happening when you don't know your birth father, or when you don't know a core pillar of your primary caregivers, is that you end up seeking the approval of everyone else around you because you can't get the approval of that person when you were growing up. So this is fundamentally tied to some form of trauma somewhere in our patterns, in our behavior, in our history, in our family history. And what this means, guys, is that we have to be able to get comfortable getting uncomfortable. I love that sentence. I use that a lot. Getting comfortable being uncomfortable. Just saying it kind of like brings up this whole like, oof, kind of uncomfortable thinking about being uncomfortable. But yeah, that's really it. And really, it wasn't anybody's fault, not even my estranged father's fault, that I spent my whole life seeking everyone else's approval because I didn't have his. I kind of learned that it was my own doing, and that I needed to unpack my issues and ask myself all these questions and like, why was I so afraid to say how I felt? What was going to happen? It's the worst that could happen. So yeah, started unpacking some of that, and then I started to get some answers and some more clarity. And what I realized was I needed to establish boundaries, and the boundaries were intrinsically tied to my self-worth, and I needed to establish my self-worth, guys. So I was giving up all of my personal power. I was pleasing everyone but myself, basically. And I was so afraid to just say how I really felt. No longer the case, because I taught myself how, and that's how I'm going to help all my clients teach themselves how as well. How not to people please, because you can break the habit, guys. You absolutely can. You are watching this video, and I am in front of you, and I broke the habit. It does not happen to me anymore. I mean, we're still human. We fall into these kind of like these patterns, but catch myself now, you know? Okay, let's talk about a people pleaser. What is, if you had to guess, the greatest thing about being a people pleaser? What are some of the traits of people pleasers? I'm gonna give you guys a few seconds here. Think about some stuff. Number one thing, open, loving heart. Biggest heart you'll find, the people pleaser heart. Sensitive people, compassionate people, just want to do what's good. They just want to give the love that they have to everyone around them. Now, with all good things, there is a weak side, or also known as a shadow side. And it's when the shadow side has more power than the pro side, or than the optimal side. That's when things become an issue, and that's when it becomes that your archetype, so your people-pleasing archetype, is working against you and not for you. And the instance where this is occurring, guys, is really when the shadow side is seeking, is not knowing boundaries, not knowing their worth, and is really seeking everyone else's approval. They're giving the power to those whose approval they're seeking. So they're not coming to any situation from a point of view of power. They're waiting for someone else to tell them their power. And therein lies some of the issue, where you end up going into every conversation, dynamic, work, personal life, relationship, parent, whatever it is, scenario, waiting for someone else to tell you kind of what your worth is. Waiting for someone to tell you that, in my case, it's okay, you don't need to have a boundary right now. We're going to keep functioning on this level, which we'll get into in a little bit, which is really about retraining the people around you that you're not a people pleaser anymore. And that can absolutely be done as well. So really what you need to do, guys, is that if you're a people pleaser, you need to set your expectations. And the situation with this is that if you're a people pleaser, you're kind of going around and you're like, let's say someone comes up to you, they ask you to do something. Like, I don't know, something you don't really want to do. Let's take an example that I would have done is my husband Nick, one of his friends' wives, let's say, would ask me to do something, and I'd be like, oh, I don't really feel like doing that. But I would have, can't really think of anything specific where this actually happened, but knowing myself back then, I would have been compelled to say yes to the wife, even if I didn't want to, because I would have looked at the situation. I would have been like, well, I owe something to Nick, and then I owe something to Nick's friend, and then Nick's friend, the wife, and the whole thing, we're all tied together. So you end up doing this thing, but you're kind of doing it from like a resentful place. You got a little bit of like a chip on your shoulder going into the situation. What ends up happening then? If you don't make your expectations clear, if you aren't honest, transparent, speak your truth about your expectations, about how you're feeling about the situation, or better yet, if you can't just say, no, I don't feel like doing this when you don't feel like doing it, you carry that chip on your shoulder, that frustration with you. And if it isn't dealt, it ends up leading to blocked energy. Blocked energy, guys, and this is why they say people pleasing is a disease. It leads to disease. And disease, guys, I'm having trouble pronouncing that word for some reason right now. Disease is one of the number one kind of killers and burdens in our society in terms of on the health spectrum. So I don't think anybody wants disease here, right? So people pleasing, guys, it's a disease because it's carrying negative energy. It's carrying an energy block. It's working also, if you want to get into it a little bit, throat chakra. Throat chakra is very much associated with speaking our truth. When we're not comfortable speaking our truth, when we're not comfortable being transparent with who we are, our throat chakra, gets blocked. And this is going to lead to health conditions with your throat. You might have even heard it before. You're going to end up having situations where maybe you get bronchitis once a year, where maybe you've got, I don't know, a sore throat here, then, and again. All of these things are energy in your body manifesting out as illness, as disease, as sickness, because you're not being truthful. It goes to that level. It really does. So people please is tied to expectation, but we always want something for our good intentions. Okay, guys? And yeah, I feel you. I really do. It's not freaking easy to tell you that much. But there is hope. What we need to do is cut the cord. You're going to cut this cord of intention. How you're going to cut this cord of intention is you're going to break the pattern so that you don't feel disappointed when your uncommunicated expectations don't come to fruition. Communication is key. Setting boundaries is key. Knowing what your intentions are is key. And also knowing what your expectations are is super key. How you know your expectations is you know exactly where you're coming from. And when you know exactly where you're coming from into a situation, you are not questioning how you're going to express that. You're not questioning if you feel comfortable, if you're in a safe place to express that, guys. So through that, you're going to solve the issue with boundaries and self-worth, my friends. And I can help you for sure dive more into that with some soul work. But if you want to know why you're people-pleasing, guys, it goes back to your childhood programming. It goes back to seeking validation. Think about what validation means for you. Think about who you're seeking validation. Oftentimes I'll tap into things with my clients where it's like you're seeking, and this again ties into like not expressing your expectations clearly, because that pent-up energy, it's like anything else. It's like you have a fight with your husband and then, or whatever, your significant other, a friend, I don't know, anybody, and then you want to have a fight, but you don't have a fight. You don't communicate yourself properly. You take that boiling up energy and it explodes on a stranger, on your sister, on your brother, on someone who really doesn't deserve it, on your child, even worse. That's also how we transfer negative energy, how we transfer this programming. The seeking of validation that you're not getting or that you didn't get from someone growing up is intrinsically linked. That little bit of trauma or that big amount of trauma is intrinsically linked to why you're people pleasing in your adult life or in your young adult life, in your older adult life. The other thing too, guys, is it's really important to recognize that it's nobody's fault but our own that we're doing this. That is a huge part of the growth process, a huge part of our spiritual growth too, guys, is just being able to recognize and forgive that everybody who raised us did the best that they knew how. This doesn't mean that their way of knowing how is the same way as we know how, but it means that they did the best that they know how, which is why forgiveness is a huge part of the process and the healing, and a huge part of the forgiveness, and a huge part of also just accepting that we're a people pleaser, yes, because of some kind of validation that we're seeking, because of some kind of trauma that happened in our early childhood programming. But it is no one's fault but our own. We're accepting and we're allowing ourselves to give up our power in everyday conversations. No one is doing it except for you. We all suffer with childhood programming issues, and it's important to work through them, recognize them, work through them, release those boundaries, those blocks, and move forward in life. And that's how you heal, and that's how you become a better person, and that is spiritual growth. The other thing that I want to mention too, guys, is I just want to be able to pull up some notes. I'm so sorry, guys, because I have something that's really interesting here that I wanted to share is that, and it's about spiritual growth, guys. And it's basically, it's sort of tied to when you set an expectation for someone and you don't express it, guys, it's not, sorry, when you express yourself, when you set a boundary, guys, and this is part of the getting comfortable being uncomfortable scenario, and that person doesn't take it for what you think they should, or doesn't accept it in a way that you think is right, it is not your responsibility. It is not your responsibility how someone else is going to deal with the fact that you're setting boundaries. That is their spiritual lesson. It's part of their spiritual growth, guys. It's nothing to do with your spiritual growth. Your spiritual growth is really in the issue that you are a people pleaser and that you're trying to release that block, move past that block, and you're trying to set boundaries. Part of that is letting go of that fear that someone else is going to reject us for standing our ground, standing in our power. There's a lot of work to do around that, or some work depending on the person and the situation. In those scenarios, those spiritual lessons, that spiritual growth that comes out of setting your own boundaries. And it's just really important to remember that notion that if you set your boundaries and the other person doesn't accept those boundaries or has trouble kind of swallowing that pill, that has absolutely nothing to do with you. That is their spiritual growth that they need to deal with. It has nothing to do with your spiritual growth. The other thing that I wanted to talk about is, is really just, I really just wanted to wrap things up on that, actually. And I really wanted to encourage you guys to step into your power, to know your worth, to put some of the tools in place that I'm sharing with you guys in order to know what you stand for and to not be shy to express exactly how you feel when you feel it, guys, because that is what is going to lead you to your higher self. It is what is going to bring you freedom in life, and it is what is going to provide you the most spiritual growth, also in the shortest amount of time. So really interesting, I find, because a lot of my coaching and a lot of my conversations circle back to boundaries. They circle back to self-worth and people-pleasing, guys. At the root of it, validation, childhood issues, childhood programming, who taught us that we need to people-please, why are we people-pleasing? All of that, guys, boils right down to our sense of self-worth, how we position ourselves in the world, the boundaries that we have. Some of the work that can be done on that as well, along with the throat chakra, is really releasing those blocks with your solar plexus chakra, which is one that I had a huge problem with, as well as my root chakra. I was unstable in both of those chakras. Both of them were completely blocked as a result of a lot of childhood issues. And what that created was I was never, ever able to stand into my power. Started to do that in 2018, literally 10 years in the making. I've been doing this for 10 consecutive years, if not more. I remember seeking approval of everyone growing up. I could never even stay in a fight with people a long time, because for me, being in a fight meant that person was disapproving of me, and I would just like spiral. It was like panic. Nick and I, like, even now, it took me so long to be able to communicate properly and be comfortable having a disagreement with him, and knowing that, like, even if we had a disagreement, and that's another huge part of it, being comfortable knowing that if you have a disagreement, it doesn't mean that person, if they're really a loved one, is going anywhere, because disagreements are part of life. It doesn't mean rejection. It doesn't mean disowning. It doesn't mean abandonment in my case, because I grew up with some of those, the wounded child, abandoned child, orphan child issues. All of that played really critically into my adult life and into my need to seek the approval of others. So if you're people-pleasing, guys, there are ways around it. There are absolutely ways that you can reprogram and you can train yourself to stop people-pleasing. And you can also train your friends, your family, your loved ones to stop expecting you to people-please as well. This involves like a reprogramming of all of that, of all of these people. And it starts small, but we're really in a time when results happen monumentally faster than ever before. So you'll see that with small actions, guys, change can manifest really rapid. You could have been living with this programming your entire life, 35 years over here. Made a switch like a couple of months' time. The page has been turned. It's like no looking back now. Always remember, guys, that people pleasing is linked to disease. It is a disease of people pleasing. And disease, guys, on the long term is really going to break us down. It is one of the biggest kind of killers in our world. And if you can do your part to even just speak your truth, to be your authentic self, to know your worth so that you feel comfortable and you feel empowered in any situation that you go into, saying exactly how you feel, saying yes when you mean yes, saying no when you mean no, releasing those blocks, you will help yourself have a longer, healthier life. Imagine that. I know, crazy. I wouldn't have believed it myself. But I'm telling you guys, it's the absolute truth. Also, you're not alone in this struggle. This is why I'm doing this video. This is why we're covering this topic. Again, leave me a comment. Let me know if you're people pleasing. Let me know if you're ready for a change. Send me an email. Send me your email address. You can reach me all the time. You can book sessions with me. Everything is just easy peasy and really quick to access me. So I would love to know your history with people pleasing, if you're trying to make a change, how you're trying to make a change, and also who you're people pleasing, who you feel compelled to people please. Is it your significant other? Is it your parents? Is it your coworkers? Is it a sibling? I would love to know. And also, I'm always here for you guys. If you want to break down that block, if you want to work through, if you want to release that, if you want to move forward, and if you want to step into your power, girlfriend's got your back. Okay, guys, that's it. Have a chic day. And I will see you in my next one in a week's time. In the meantime, I will catch you guys on Facebook, facebook.com/Stephanie Chic Fan to reach my page, and Stephanie Chic on Instagram. Thanks, guys. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.